up next we have Dr. Michael Schirner. He studied bioinformatics at Bayreuth University and at the Free University of Berlin. He holds a PhD in computational neuroscience and medicine informatics from Charité, where he now works as a senior scientist and where he coordinates the development of the virtual research environment data management platform. Dr. Schirner, the stage is yours. Sorry.
Does it work? Yes. Many thanks, Leah, and thank you to the organizers. Hello, everyone from my side also. My name is Michael. Glad to be here. And in this session, as this exciting summit is now coming to an end, or slowly coming to an end, I would like to offer to us all a short break from AI. I promise I won't talk about AI at all. I won't mention the word AI at all. I will only talk about BI. And with BI, I don't mean business intelligence, I mean biological intelligence. So we are the brain simulation section at the Charité. We are sitting right behind the Bettenhochhaus of Charité, the largest patient building, and we are quite a large group with diverse backgrounds like computer scientists, mathematicians, psychologists, neuroscientists, bioinformatics, and so on. So in this talk, I would like to share with you our latest research on learning how network structure shapes decision-making for bio-inspired computing. So to give you a visual impression of what we are doing, I would like to show you this short video. What we are doing is we scan patients or healthy subjects with MRI to extract their brain structure and their connectivity. So this plate of spaghetti that you see beneath the neocortex is the connections that connect different brain areas. So we scan these connections with a process called tractography, and then we divide the brain into a set of different regions and then try to aggregate the connectivity information between different brain areas to arrive at a more abstract network description. So this is a biological network. It's not an artificial network. It's kind of artificial as we simulate it in a computer, but it simulates biology. This is the difference. So again, what we are doing is we extract the connectivity from MRI. We use this network description to simulate the brain activity of the subject, and then we fit the open parameters of this model against the empirical functional networks of the subject. So as you can see on the right side, there are two matrices. These matrices are a compact representation of the functional networks, the moment-to-moment networks that are forming and dissolving in the brain. And this we then use to fit the model, the open parameters of the model, to optimize it and to most efficiently explain brain function. So again, we use the structural input to simulate some function, to simulate activity, and then we tune the model to fit it against this functional MRI, and then we use the activity, the processes that happen inside the model in order to explain behavior, the behavior of humans, and to derive new hypotheses for falsification with empirical data. And this is especially here about intelligence, like the general factor of intelligence or fluid intelligence and processing speed. So what actually is intelligence and how can we artificially create it or represent it in computers? We could also ask the question, why do some people solve more problems on intelligence tests than others? Why do they solve them maybe more efficiently, or why do they solve more problems? Or what distinguishes actually human intelligence from AI such as ChatGPT and so on? What is your theory of intelligence? I bet at one point in your life you asked yourself, why would some of my peers have a better intelligence or less intelligence than myself? And often, at least for myself, a theory appears which is they have a faster brain. This is a common theory. This is in fact one of the leading theories in intelligence research since the very first intelligence tests in the year 1890. Since the year 1890, we saw that processing speed, a very simple activity, leads to very conclusive results. Here I'm showing you another kind of intelligence test. This is a fluid intelligence test. It's about solving novel problems. You cannot learn this, you cannot train for this. You have to reason the solution out while you are doing the problem, while you are working on the problem. And this is what we wish from AI, right? That they really reason. And on the left side, the problem appears very simple, right? I think most can solve it quickly by just quickly looking. You have to tilt the figure by 90 degrees. This is the solution to the problem. On the right-hand side, I cannot find the solution easily. I would really have to think hard about what is shown here and what is asked from me in order to solve the problem. I cannot answer it readily. I need to really think about it. It takes time. So again, what underlies intelligence differences? Processing speed is one of the leading theories what underlies intelligence differences. Are smart people smart because they have faster brains? So this can be shown over and over again, as I said, since the year 1890 with hundreds of thousands of subjects. You can show over and over again. If people, when they do such a simple test like press a button when the color green appears on the display, you can do this within a second, right, or a sub-second. This is so simple, but it tells you almost everything about your whole physiological intelligence state. So this simple information, how quickly you press the button, correlates tightly with most other intelligence measures. The only exception we see here is vocabulary, which tends to increase over age, but anything else is linked to this processing speed. I bet you even have heard about this correlation between intelligence and death. So people that have a higher IQ tend to live longer, they earn more money, they go up into higher positions and so on. This was a prominent result of intelligence research that was found maybe 20, 30 years ago. And it turned out that this correlation between intelligence and death can actually be mostly attributed again to reaction time, to processing speed, to this really quick faculty of just quickly pressing a button. It comes right after smoking, even before blood pressure, resting heart rate, alcohol, and so on, all these usual factors to explain death. So it's really a leading theory in intelligence research. But there are also other theories, like the theory about thinking fast and slow by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, who thinks that the brain has two subsystems, a faster system that does this fast reaction and operates quickly without any thinking. You don't need to think to hit the brake at a traffic light, you just do it. System 2, on the other hand, really needs to allocate some form of attention, and it's a recursive, effortful mental activity, which is often associated with the experience of agency and choice. So what we now found, actually, in empirical data, is that participants with higher intelligence were actually only quicker when responding to these simple problems, but they needed more time to correctly solve hard problems. And this became apparent in this fluid intelligence test that I showed you earlier, because here we can sort the questions according to the difficulty from low to high. And this is shown here. Here we see the questions sorted from low to high, 1 to 24, and we see the correlation with processing, with the time that was needed to correctly answer this question. And on the top left, we see for the easiest problem, it's exactly as we thought it is since the year 1890. Those with the highest G factor had the lowest, or they needed the lowest time in order to answer the question correctly. But surprisingly, when it comes to the hard questions, there's suddenly a flip. And those with higher intelligence suddenly needed more time than those with lower intelligence to correctly answer the question. What we also found is that slow solvers had a higher, let's call it brain synchronization, a higher functional connectivity. It's functional networks. It's the average synchronization, the average network building ability of a brain, basically. And this was independent of the intelligence of those people. It was just related to their, so we have the 1 to 24 questions again. Here we see all these correlations are positive. So independent now of the intelligence, just related to the timing of these brains, we have now a relationship with something that we can measure in MRI. And this, of course, we model, we simulate in computer science. So our brain models look like this. You see here two brain areas. The red and blue is one brain area, and the other red and blue is also a brain area. And they are, the left one here, the red, are excitatory populations. They are strongly connected on the left side. On the right side, the excitatory populations are not so strongly connected, but they have strong connections to the inhibitory populations. So we cannot really measure this, right? In the brain, these axons and all this stuff, this is much, much smaller than what you can measure in an MRI. So we now optimize this model by having identified basically an algorithm or a mechanistic rule that associates excitation-inhibition balance, an important brain mechanism, with functional brain networks again. So what we can do is, if we tune the excitation-inhibition ratio from low to high, we can now suddenly set explicitly the explicit functional connectivity between these brain areas, the emerging network when starting this model. Now, we do this for every single brain area at the same time to optimize the model. We just tune the EI balance of all connections, and this really led to a surprising result for us. So suddenly we are now able to perfectly fit these brain models against the empirical brain networks. So we get really high fits. You cannot distinguish what is the simulated brain activity and what is the empirical brain activity. Now we did this for all the 650 subjects. I probably forgot to mention this earlier. In total, we have 1,200 subjects. From all of those, we have IQ tests. From 650s, we have sufficient quality in the MRI data. And from all of them, we built brain network models, basically, with a very high fit, which was not possible before. And now we look inside the model, inside the simulated dynamics of this model, and try to explain why is the behavior different based on what we see inside the model. And we found that changing this excitation-inhibition balance not only modulates the functional connectivity, it also modulates the internal synchronization and the average amplitude of synaptic inputs. Now, in order, you may have asked yourself, what has this to do with intelligence? So here, intelligence is implemented as a winner-take-all decision-making and persistent activity working memory process, very complex. So basically, intelligence, we see it as a recursive decomposition of complex problems into simpler sub-problems, very computer scientist-like, divide and conquer. And basically then on every level of this hierarchy of decision-making, decisions are formed and evidence is put forward in the network up to the ultimate decision maker there. And we have basically circuits that simulate these activity, this winner-take-all decision-making and persistent activity working memory to represent such evidence in the brain and to integrate it into new decisions. These are also the typical populations models we use. And now we couple these decision-making circuits with the large-scale models of our 650 subject-specific models. And now we can go full circle, basically. In the empirical data, we have seen that the slower people had a better solution and they had a higher brain connectivity. In the large-scale model, we have found that the higher brain connectivity leads to a decreased amplitude and an increased synchrony. And then in the small-scale model, we can show that the decreased amplitude and the increased synchrony leads to slower but better solutions in winner-take-all decision-making. And the nice thing is, since these are dynamical system models, we can analyze all of this with mathematical tools, the dynamical system theory tools. So these are phase space plots where you can really look into the behavior of the system and explain the behavior of humans based on these geometrical objects in dynamical systems, basically. And we can there then analyze how different states of brain synchronization lead to different integration of information in the brain and how different settings of synchronization between different brain areas based on their excitation-inhibition balance leads to different effectivities in decision making. So you have always this trade-off, as Daniel Kahneman suspected, and here you can show this basically with a mathematical or a computational network model. It's just an emerging effect of excitation-inhibition balance. It just emerges out of networks. You cannot prevent it. That networks can be fast and slow is something that we see in biological networks, which doesn't exist yet in artificial networks. So now we coupled the large scale and the small scales. We couple these dedicated decision-making circuits to the large scale model of our 650 subjects. And what we see here, that the brain models of the smarter subjects made indeed more correct decisions, and they took more time for decision-making in accordance with the empirical result that we had from these test persons. So we also validated the robustness and generalizability of this tuning algorithm. So there are many parameters tuned at the same time. But all of this is based on a biological plausible tuning rule. It's excitation-inhibition balance. This is an inherent mechanistic part of the network, basically, where neuroscience can show over and over again how it is related to behavior. So we repeated this fitting, randomizing everything that we can randomize. It always leads to the same outcome. So we are able to find a unique solution in this fitting, and we're happy at this stage. So in summary, intelligent people take more time to solve complex problems. Also, in brain networks, there is no free lunch, even if business would like to have it often. Brain network models can be fitted with arbitrary functional networks based on a biological plausible fitting algorithm, excitation-inhibition balance. The dynamics of the subject-specific models relate to cognition, supporting inference of healthy and pathological neurocomputational mechanisms. And then by coupling such circuits for decision-making in working memory with our brain network models, we can now simulate high-level cognitive processes in task virtual twins or digital twins of humans, basically, that we use as a step to artificial human intelligence. Thank you for your attention, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for this very informative talk. And since we have some minutes left, maybe we have some questions from the audience. Is anybody has a question? No? Then maybe I have a question about your team at the Charité. Can you maybe talk a little bit about how many people work there?
Yes, so maybe we don't have the time to switch back, but it's around 40 people at Charité. The team is led by Professor Petra Ritter. And I'm a senior scientist in this team. We are working together since many years and building the virtual brain. This is one of our largest projects where we try to offer a product for the community to make brain simulation easier for different communities. And we are also involved in a lot of AI projects. So, for example, we are coordinating the EU project TEF Health, the Testing and Experimentation Facility AI and Health, which is a large EU project for the certification of AI. Please, if you are a SME who creates AI products and want to get certified after the AI Act, get in contact with us.
Oh, that's very interesting.
We are creating these certifications, basically, with TÜV together, for example. It's a huge European project funded with 60 million, and where like 300 European stakeholders are brought together to really get these cross-border certification in whole Europe.
That's very interesting, also probably for our audience. So thank you very much again for your talk.